Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Radha Rasbihari, Radha Rasbihari, Radhe. Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman. Nittai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaur Hari Bol. Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivajaka Stotra Sadasri Srimad Divine Grace Abhaya Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Savior of the whole world, most merciful, His Divine Grace. Jai Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikho Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gratra Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mai Purnadev Dham Ki Jai. Purushottam Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. New Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Dwarka Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gova Gopinath Shyama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Yamunamai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Brihadaranga Srila Prabhupada Transcendental Book Distribution Program Ki Jai. Kali Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtanatya Ki Jai. Bhaktivedanta Institute Scientific Presentation Programs Ki Jai. Samaveda Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glory to Srila Prabhupada and Sri Gauranga, Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimade Bhaktivedanta Swami Dhanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirbhisheshunyoni Paschatire Starne. So this morning we are reading from I will build you a temple, the Juhu story by His Holiness Giriraj Swami. Reading from page 242. As I can see, the context is devotees are still trying to get the permit to build the big temple, the one we are sitting on right now. And many of these things are also new to me, all these details, even though I have heard the overall story before. We are getting so many details about what really happened during those times. It's a very inspiring story. Srila Prabhupada struggled to establish this temple as he promised. As he promised Radharasbihari, as he promised Lord Krishna even before he went to America. Srila Prabhupada saw this land when he used to come from Andheri, walking down Juhu Gully and going this way towards Sumati Maharaj's house, which is on the way to the beach. So that time he had already seen this piece of land. And he said, Krishna, if you ever give me this land, I will build you a beautiful temple. So that is the title of the book. So which we can see Prabhupada actually fulfilled that promise. Krishna also fulfilled the promise from his side. He arranged for this land to be given to Prabhupada. But then Prabhupada had to struggle a lot along with his devotees to fulfill his promise. So we are going through those struggles, which is actually wonderful lesson for all of us, how to remain Krishna conscious even in the worst of oppositions and obstacles. And it's a very inspiring story. So the thing was, the devotees who came from the west, they were in Vrindavan. And after staying so many months in Vrindavan, they were very eager to get back to their services in the United States and other parts of the world. But then suddenly a telegram came from Srila Prabhupada saying that no devotees should leave now, they should all come to Bombay and join his struggle for building this temple here. So they all came. So one of those devotees was Amarendra. Amarendra was also in Vrindavan. We are reading from the book now. Amarendra was also in Vrindavan, about to leave. I couldn't wait to get back to America after my first time in India, he remembered. All I could think about was Goranga potatoes and cauliflower pakoras and getting back to America and real food. Goranga potatoes is very famous in the Western temples. It's especially Ekadashi food. Potatoes, with baked potatoes with a little yellowish color from the turmeric. So that's their favorite food in the US temples. And cauliflower pakoras and getting back to American real food. So that's why it calls it real food. I was waiting for the bus. This is in Vrindavan. I was waiting for the bus, and all of a sudden somebody came up and said, Prabhupada said that everybody must go to Bombay. Don't return home. We will change your visas. Prabhupada wanted us to go to Bombay to demonstrate and protest against the government. And Balavanda was there because he had some experience in dealing with politicians. So we took the flight to Bombay. There, Prabhupada was in a darshan, furious, saying, in the land of Krishna, they have opposed the teachings of the Bhagavad-gita. This was inconceivable. He was on a campaign and he wanted devotees to go out and protest and have kirtan. He sent Vishnujana Swami out to do Harinam every day, and he wanted Balavanda to meet with the politicians to overturn the decision. Vishnujana Swami was a very famous kirtan leader. He used to sing for hours and hours in the western cities like Los Angeles, in the good old days, when there were no books yet, the main service of the devotees was to go out on the street Harinam in the streets of western cities, especially in Vishnujana Swami was especially going out in Los Angeles. His brother also later on became a sannyasi, I think Revati Nandan Swami. So he was a leader like that. And devotees are still famous for the street Harinams. That has created lasting impression. Whenever many outsiders, even in the Western society, they favorably remember devotees for doing street Harinam, because that is actually Lord Chaitanya's process. Many Australian, American, European and African devotees proceeded to Bombay after the Vrindavan festival and early every morning went on Harinam processions through the neighborhood, led by Achyutananda, Deenanath, Jai Sachinandana, Vishnujana and other expert Kirtaniyas. Sometimes they accompanied Prabhupada on his morning walks. Achyutananda Prabhu was especially doing a lot of seva in Indian Yatra in those days. So, and he actually produced that book, Songs of the Vaishnava Acharyas, our songbook, famous ISKCON songbook. After a day's chanting, some devotees went to Juhu beach for a swim in the sea, which Prabhupada said would be good for their health. Vishnujana was wary of sharks and laughed as he said, "Now Krishna will come to me in his form as a shark and say, 'Here I am.'" After longer chanting processions, later in the morning led by Vishnujana Swami, sometimes in downtown Bombay and sometimes in nearby Santa Cruz or Villeparle, Kurmadas remembered, the devotees would return for lunch. Once the heat of the day faded, they would sit in the temple and sing bhajans, then go out to the surrounding markets and shopping areas, advertising Srila Prabhupada's evening program at the temple. In the night, after arriving in his jeep from the back of Hare Krishna land, Prabhupada would speak on Bhagavad-gita, chapter 4, in the mandapa adjoining the temple. After the lecture, Balaram Das described, there would be an arati ceremony, and every one of us danced enthusiastically in front of Srila Prabhupada. Immediately after, Prabhupada would personally distribute the entire plate of RadhaRasbihari's Mahaprasad. We would squeeze and push and shove forward to get a handful of halwa and fruit that Prabhupada pressed into our eager hands. Hare Krishna land was situated near a large cinema hall, and every evening, both before and after the movie, there were long lines of traffic. The honking horns and hundreds of pedestrians coming and going created a lot of noise and congestion. If the police could allow congestion caused by the cinema, we wondered, why not for the temple? So that's a Chandan talkies was there since those days. The real problem, Prabhupada said, was that people were not Krishna conscious. To combat this, to make people aware of the value of Krishna consciousness, we should hold festivals throughout Bombay. Then the people themselves would protest the actions of the police commissioner and insist that the government allow the temple to come up. Prabhupada was inspired to both protest and preach. But when the time came for the protest, he adopted a more cautious view. On one morning walk, he returned to the point that we were in a foreign country. If the government didn't like us, if they found us too troublesome, they could just ask us to leave. He quoted this saying, "Do not pick a fight with a crocodile while in the water." It was not good for us to pick a fight with the Indian leaders while in their jurisdiction. We couldn't win such a fight, and it wouldn't be appreciated. He suggested that instead of having a demonstration through the streets and ending at the police station, we should hold massive kirtan programs and preach so that the people of Bombay would become convinced of the value of Krishna consciousness, that Krishna consciousness was the only hope of saving the world. Then, he said, when the people of Bombay are convinced of the importance of Krishna consciousness, they will see that the temple is built. So as you can see, Prabhupada always gave priority to preaching. Preaching is always safe. And in terms of protest and battles, he was much more cautious. At that time, you can imagine, there were mostly more than 90% were all foreign disciples. Prabhupada was here. He started this temple with mostly foreign devotees. Indian devotees joined gradually, much more slowly. Even when I joined this temple in 1984, there are a lot of devotees from the Western countries. Actually, most of them were managers here. And now the story has changed. But you can see, because Prabhupada put that emphasis on preaching, now the public of Bombay is so much attracted to RadhaRasbihari. Even in this heavy rainy season, I still see a lot of people come. Even during Raj Bhoga arati also, the temple room is full. And on Ekadashi days, especially also today also, you will see a lot of people coming. So winning over the hearts, preaching always win over the hearts. And in terms of protest, Prabhupada once said, Lord Chaitanya arranged massive protests with Chand Kasi. But then Prabhupada was singing the same way, we should also do similar protests here. But then suddenly Prabhupada said, but Lord Chaitanya is God himself. Even if nobody joined him in protest, he could have smashed Chand Kasi just like that. We cannot imitate God. We have to consider all angles of a situation and then take the decision. Then Krishna will bless us. So that was Prabhupada. Prabhupada is demonstrating as a devotee how he can still go through the struggles and win battles by the mercy of Krishna. So even though Prabhupada modified his position on the protest, he still wanted us to remain active. Bhagavatam was given the responsibility of speaking with ministers about our Prasad program. We were getting food from America to distribute to the people, he recalled. And I spoke with the different government officials to arrange for the permits. I also collected donations of food and money for Prasad distribution to the public. Every day I went all the way downtown on the train and then came all the way back. In the evenings, Prabhupada would await my report. What is the news today? I would say. I collected 1,500 rupees from this man and sacks of grain from that person. He would say, very good. He was pleased to see any progress. 1,500 rupees in those days was a big amount of money. It's probably like 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupee today. He would also ask me about the ministers I had spoken with. One day I had spoken to the chief minister of the state of Maharashtra. Prabhupada was pleased. He beamed. Here his American disciples were speaking with the highest government officials and arranging for so many things. He appreciated how resourceful, adamant, and tenacious we were about serving our spiritual master. He would praise me for my accomplishments, and I always felt good. I was doing my spiritual master's work. We also began to organize preaching programs. But most of the devotees who came from Vrindavan would be back at the temple during the day. Prabhupada was concerned about how the devotees would be engaged, and he asked his managers what the devotees would do. We replied that we would have a program in the temple all day long, alternating readings, kirtans, and discussions about Krishna consciousness. Very good, he approved. After a few days, Prabhupada asked how the program in the temple was going, whether the devotees were enjoying chanting and reading and hearing. Well, frankly, Srila Prabhupada, Tamal had to tell him, most of the devotees are in coming, and the ones who do come, most of them fall asleep. All right, Prabhupada replied, if they are Shudras, let them work in the garden, but everyone must be engaged. You tell the devotees that if they are actually Brahmanas, they should sit in the temple and be engaged in Kirtan and Krishna Katha. And if they are not Brahmins, if they are Shudras, they can work in the garden. But nobody can remain idle. Nobody can sleep. Vishnujana was in charge of the temple program. But in spite of Prabhupada's words, the devotees still didn't come or work in the garden. One day Vishnujana told them, Prabhupada is not pleased that we are all so lazy. We should be doing something. He says that if you just sit around, you will get sick. After 2 weeks, the Australian devotees became restless and asked me to approach Prabhupada on their behalf. There was little engagement for them in Bombay, they said, and they would have a lot of work to prepare for Prabhupada's imminent visit to their country. When I passed along their request to leave, Prabhupada had me deliver them a stern reply. What is the question of no engagement? There are so many opportunities to read and chant. Don't be impatient, wanting to go here and there. So the Australian devotees resigned themselves to another week in Bombay. With all the difficulties and challenges, I had a gnawing feeling that I was failing Srila Prabhupada, that he was displeased with me, and I approached Satsrupa, my first temple president and senior godbrother, who was now Prabhupada's secretary, with my concern. He replied that he had never heard Prabhupada speak about me in negative terms. The only thing he had heard him say was, Giriraj has too much to do. Eventually, Prabhupada drafted a letter to the police commissioner. He wrote that the Bhagavad-gita, which was accepted by every Hindu, recommended Sadatam Kirtayandu Mam, that there should always be kirtan, but that some people, he didn't mention the commissioner directly, considered kirtan to be a nuisance. Who were these people? He again quoted the Gita. Namam dushkritino mutha, that fools and rascals didn't surrender to Krishna and didn't like Krishna Kirtan. He told the commissioner that he was in the position of a king, addressing him in the ideal, and asked him to give us protection from such people. He wrote that traditionally the administrators and the government would give protection to the innocent citizens from such fools and rascals. So we were appealing to him as humble devotees to please give us protection and allow the kirtan to go on in the temple and grant the NOC. He had us sign the letter and deliver it to the police commissioner's office. When after some days there was no response, he asked us to again go. The commissioner was not available, but we met his secretary. Did you give the letter to the commissioner? We inquired. Yes, he said. The commissioner said it was the best, most brilliant letter he had ever received. He was so impressed. He said he had never received a letter like it before. But he didn't give the NOC because he was involved in a conspiracy. Obviously, the commissioner could not resist appreciating Prabhupada's letter, but he had ulterior motives. We'll have to read further on to find out what was his conspiracy. Whatever happened, Srila Prabhupada always remained fixed in Krishna consciousness, with full faith in his spiritual master and Krishna. As he wrote to Pranav Das on March 30, in Bombay we are meeting the opposition peacefully, and I hope things will come out successfully. Although some devotees found Dr. Patel could be annoying, I appreciated the service he did for us, and I liked his discussion with Srila Prabhupada. He knew some Sanskrit, and he liked to analyze different verses with Srila Prabhupada. One day he brought up the verse, Yada pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tadam swakarmanatam abhyarcha siddhim vindadi manavaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gavarnita ki jai, Shri SriSriRadhaRasbihariTemple ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman ji ki jai. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, a man can attain perfection through performing his own work. Gita 18:46. I wanted a little exposition on this, he said. Swakarmanatam abhyarcha. Yes, Prabhupada replied, Swakarmana. The karma of a man depends upon his position in the society. Yes, Prabhupada agreed. Patel is speaking, whether he is a Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra like me, and whether he is a sannyasi or a grihastha, on that karma, and when he does that karma without expectation of any fruit, that karma is as good as bhakti, according to this line, Swakarmanatam abhyarcha siddhim vindadi manavaha. This is a very interesting exchange between Dr. Patel and Srila Prabhupada. This is typical of the Indian mentality, where they say, just do your work. They will also say, don't be attached to the results. Then you are following Bhagavad-gita. And Prabhupada will really expose the defects in that argument. No, Prabhupada said, the result should be there, but tam unto Krishna. This they conveniently ignore. Tam unto Krishna, that part they ignore. Everything else they will speak. Give the result to Krishna, not self. You earn lakhs of rupees, but tam abhyarcha, give it to Krishna. Not take it yourself or distribute amongst your children. Tam abhyarcha, that is service. First of all, understand this word tam. Patel is speaking, Swakarmanatam abhyarcha, karmana. Prabhupada, yes. How can you object to karma? That is what I want to know. That is Patel's question. Prabhupada says, karmana, by your work. Prabhupada said, just like you are working as a medical practitioner, so you earn lakhs of rupees, give to Krishna. That is tam abhyarcha. Then you become perfect. That is also confirmed in the Bhagavata. Adapumbir dvijasheshta varna ashrama vibhagashaha. Everyone is working according to varna and ashrama. So, swanishtidasya dharmasya. Anyone who is serving according to his dharma, an engineer, a doctor or somebody else, he is serving according to his occupational duty. But he has to see Swakarmanatam abhyarcha samsiddhim labade. That is Gita. And it is said, Swanishtidasya dharmasya samsiddhir, perfection. What is that? Haritoshnam. We have to see whether Krishna is satisfied. You earn lakhs of rupees and give it to Krishna. Krishna said, Yat karoshi. Never mind what you are doing. Kurusha tad madarpanam. Give it to me. And no sir, I am serving you, but the money is in my pocket. Patel speaking in, everything is Krishna's. How can you give anything, even a leaf? Good question. Prabhupada, oh yes. Just like these boys and girls are giving. That is the philosophy. These boys and girls are giving everything, whole life. They do not ask even a single paisa from me that, my dear sir, please give me 4 annas. I will go to the cinema. You see, they are serving. They are given everything. This boy, you like this Giriraj, he is earning at least 50,000 rupees per month. He does not keep a single paisa. This is service. They are not poor. They are earning, but everything for Krishna. So Patel is now asking Giriraj, Dr. Patel asks, how are you earning 50,000 rupees a month? Prabhupada answered for him. Prabhupada said, because 50 members. Prabhupada answered for me. 50 members, 1100 rupees. That was a life membership amount at that time. He makes at least 2 or 3 members per day. Some days he is absent, so average 50,000. Not a single 50 paisa coin does he keep. There are many, all of them. Not that everyone is earning 50,000, but even 50, 100 or 50 paisa, everything for Krishna. That is tam abhyarcha. And if you divide partially, some percentage for Krishna, some percentage for my sense gratification, then Krishna says, Ye yathamam prapadyande tam tadaiva bhajamyaham. Proportionately. If you have spent 10% of your energy for Krishna, Krishna is 10% for you. And if you have spent 1% for Krishna, Krishna is 1% for you. Responsive cooperation. Responsive cooperation, an Indian man repeated, which was greeted by laughter, because it was a term that had been used in the Indian freedom movement. This institution has advanced so much all over the world, Prabhupada continued, because we have got these boys who have dedicated everything for Krishna. Therefore, it has advanced so quickly. They do not think of anything as personal. So karmanatam abhyachya samsiddhi haritoshanam. Even though we did not think we were on the platform, Prabhupada described, when he used us to illustrate a point, we could not discount what he said, and we felt inspired to come to that standard. So Prabhupada was appreciating every little service that the devotees did for him, and devotees also take it in a humble mood, knowing well that we are really not on that standard, but Prabhupada is encouraging us to come to that standard, and that's always the case. That should be our mood also, always. Though he often spoke like an impersonalist, Dr. Patel considered himself to be a Vaishnava. And when Prabhupada would call him a Mayavadi, he would object, "No sir, I am a Vaishnava." In a way, he was a Mayavadi. He accepted Krishna and the Bhagavad-gita, but it wasn't quite clear how he accepted Krishna, as the person Krishna or as something impersonal speaking through Krishna. His position was always a little ambiguous, and the way he spoke, it was hard to figure him out. But he would always insist that he was not only a Vaishnava, but a pure Vaishnava. During one of their walks together, Prabhupada criticized one of the revered so-called spiritual leaders of India, and Dr. Patel became livid. He was so angry, he was shaking. "You cannot criticize like this," he shouted. This is another very wonderful story, the exchange between Dr. Patel and Prabhupada. And actually, Dr. Patel used to come to this temple in the 80s also for many years. He always, very regular, he used to come for Darshanarati and take Charanamrit and like that. Every day he used to come. But this is another exchange where he gets really exposed by Prabhupada. And Prabhupada tells a story, coming to that. During one of their walks together, Dr. Patel became livid. He was so angry, he was shaking. "You cannot criticize like this," he shouted. Prabhupada is saying, "I am not saying, Krishna is saying." Prabhupada shouted back, "Naman dushkritino mudha." And like that, they were shouting back and forth. This time, Dr. Patel's friends, he led a group of cronies, perhaps because he was a little intellectual and outspoken, tried to drag him away, saying, "Swamiji has a heart condition. Don't upset him so." But Dr. Patel persisted. He was shouting at Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was shouting back. In the end, Dr. Patel's cronies pulled him away. Later at the temple, Tamal Krishna asked, "Srila Prabhupada, why do you do it? Why do you put up with him? He is so offensive." "It is our duty to engage everyone," Prabhupada said. "But what is his actual position?" Tamal Krishna asked. "Is he a Vaishnava? Is he a Mayavadi? What is he?" In response, Prabhupada told a story about a man who could speak many languages. In whatever language people address him, he could respond fluently. No one could figure out where the man was actually from. After much discussion, a neighbor said, "I will find out." And one day, when the man was preoccupied, the neighbor came up behind him and gave him a big whack. And when the man started to curse in his native tongue, his origin was disclosed. That is Prabhupada's story. Prabhupada is a neighbor in this story now. Dr. Patel is like that, Prabhupada said. He can speak very expertly. He can sound like a devotee, sound like a Vaishnava, sound like a Mayavadi, sound like anything. But when I gave him a slap where it really hurt, this so-called saintly person that he revered, his real language came out. Thereafter, Prabhupada restricted talk during his walks. Now, no more discussion. We will only read Krishna book. And for the first time in years, Dr. Patel avoided him. So this is, Prabhupada used to go on morning walk on the Juhu beach. That's where most of these discussions took place. So Prabhupada continued walking, but he wanted to restrict discussions. Then one day, Dr. Patel was walking on one side of the beach, and Prabhupada was walking on the other. And something made Dr. Patel change course. He just walked up to Srila Prabhupada and bowed at his feet. He came back. We have an assembly, told Prabhupada, and they passed by majority vote that I should refrain from coming here. But somehow or other I came. Prabhupada reciprocated graciously and with humor. I saw your motor car and offered my obeisances. I was thinking that Dr. Patel's representative, the car, is here. Actually, Prabhupada had a very sweet relationship with this Dr. Patel. So even though Dr. Patel got angry and fought with him, he could not stay away from Prabhupada. He came back. Then Dr. Patel came to the point. Swamiji, he said, we have been taught to respect all the saints of India. That is the general Indian philosophy, right? Prabhupada also gives a wonderful reply. And our business, Prabhupada replied, is to point out who is not a saint. Very simple. On another morning walk, Dr. Patel brought up the topic of the 12 sets of bedding he had given to the devotees, complaining to Srila Prabhupada that we hadn't taken care of them. At first there were 12 sets. Then after a while there was one less blanket and fewer pillows. In time there were only about 7 sets, then 3 sets, and finally there was nothing left of the gift at all. So Dr. Patel complained that he had gone and begged and organized the gift, and now there was nothing left, not a trace, not a thread. Prabhupada responded, these boys and girls from Europe and America who have come to serve me, they don't care for their bodies. They know I am not this body, so why should they care? As long as they can serve their spiritual master and chant Hare Krishna, they are happy. They don't mind if they have to sleep on the floor or get bitten by mosquitoes. They are detached from the body. All they care about is devotional service. They are already liberated, he said. That moksha you so much want, that moksha they already have. That is why there is nothing left of your gift. They don't care for the body or the comforts of the body. They are liberated, which you so much want to become. So Prabhupada is utilizing every opportunity to preach to Dr. Patel. It's a fact, the highest goal for Mayavadis is to become liberated. But devotees, bhakti begins on the liberated platform. Right? So Prabhupada's mercy, we are already liberated, and we are given a chance to do devotional service, to do bhakti. Prabhupada's answer was profound, expressed with a right twist. It was true, devotees were liberated. Pure devotional service began on the liberated platform. Brahma Bhuda Prasannalpma Nashojati na Kankshati Samasarveshu bhudeshu madbhaktim labade param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Gita 18:54. Even a neophyte devotee was beyond a Mayavadi who desired liberation. So in a subtle, tactful way this time, Srila Prabhupada put Dr. Patel in his place and exalted the devotees in comparison. Still, even liberated devotees sometimes took care of so-called material possessions, knowing them to be Krishna's property, to be used in Krishna's service. The highest conception of renunciation or detachment was Yukta Vairagya, defined by Srila Rupa Goswami. Anasaktasya vishayan yadarham ubayunjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. Things should be accepted for the Lord's service and not for one's personal sense gratification. If one accepts something without attachment and accepts it because it is related to Krishna, one's renunciation is called Yukta Vairagya, befitting renunciation. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-255. Srila Prabhupada himself perfectly demonstrated the principle of Yukta Vairagya. He carefully maintained whatever Krishna sent him, and he engaged not only anything and everything, but also everyone in Krishna's service, including Dr. Patel. Around this time, the Illustrated Weekly of India carried an article by Aghehananda Bharati, an Austrian-born Indologist and Advaitin sannyasi, under the title Hare Krishna versus Shiva Shiva. In the article, Bharati gave his version of a series of exchanges and debates he had with Swami Hridayananda of ISKCON. I shared my impression with Prabhupada that the weekly's editor, Kushwant Singh, had run the piece along with that title to make us all, believers in general, look silly, bickering over deities and evidence. Prabhupada agreed with my assessment. Yes, he said, Bharati is a fool, but Singh is a demon. Maybe many of you remember Kushwant Singh, so here we have Prabhupada's assessment of him, a demon. On March 26, Amritlal Pandya, our old friend and life member from Vileparle, brought two sadhus from the Swaminarayan temple in Dadar to meet Srila Prabhupada. Swaminarayan followers considered themselves to be a Vaishnava sect, but generally, instead of worshipping Krishna, they worshipped only Swaminarayan, known also as Sahajanand Swami, who was their original guru and had lived from 1781 to 1830. The sect was popular mainly with Gujaratis, and their principles of conduct were similar to ISKCON's. In fact, on one morning walk, Dr. Patel had brought the Shikshapatri written by Swaminarayan and read excerpts to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had approved of most of them. Prabhupada was in his room talking with the Jashamati Nandana Das and his 70-year-old mother when Mr. Pandya brought the monks up to see him. When the door opened and the sannyasis saw her, they became disturbed and covered their faces. In their sect, brahmacharis and sannyasis never looked at or spoke to women. In their temples, the women listened from the other side of a curtain. Bhagavata had also brought the monks upstairs. Let us wait, he told them. Prabhupada will finish soon and then you can go in. So they went back down and waited. When Yasumani and his mother had left and the monks went in to see Prabhupada, he treated them with respect. I am so sorry, he said, but one of my leading students' elderly mother came to see me. I saw her while her son was present in the room. My sannyasi servant was also here. Prabhupada is explaining his position. He knows these people are very strict, so-called strict. So Prabhupada is explaining that he was not alone with a woman. Other devotees were there. Yes, I understand, Prabhupada replied. Lord Chaitanya was also very strict. The monks told Prabhupada that if any of them saw the face of a woman, he was considered to be fallen. Well, I speak to women, Prabhupada said. Does that mean that I am fallen? They didn't reply. Then he brought up the question of why the sect worshipped Swaminarayan and not Krishna. We believe that you can worship the Guru on the same level as God, the monks replied. Just like you are worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so we are worshipping Swaminarayan. Yes, Prabhupada told them, we do worship the Guru on the same level as God, but with God. We worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but with Radha and Krishna. So if you worship Swaminarayan with Radha and Krishna, that worship will be proper, otherwise not. That began the confrontation. They said that Swaminarayan was God. Where in Srimad Bhagavatam does it say that Swaminarayan is God? Prabhupada questioned. I have not seen. I have seen Rama, Nrsinga, Varaha and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mentioned in the Bhagavatam. But where is Swaminarayan? It is in this book, they replied. So Prabhupada is actually really coming to the point. Actually also, this is just my point, that our philosophy is that it's not that we do not see women, but as Chanakya's moral code said, one should see all women as mother except one's own wife. Matruvat paradareshu paradraveshu lostravat. Anyway, Srila Prabhupada put them in their place. Prabhupada friendly asked them, do you think I am fallen? So who has written that book? Is it in the Vedas? Is it the Vedas? Is it written by Vyas? No, they said, such and such Swami wrote it. Oh, that Swami. Who is he? What parampara is he from? Prabhupada was going on hammering. Bhagavata later remembered, he wouldn't let them go. They didn't understand the philosophy, and Prabhupada smashed them to pieces. Okay, we are going to leave, Swamiji, one of the monks said. We have had enough. And they walked out. The next morning on his walk, Srila Prabhupada brought up the question of how to regard and deal with women. Why should one hate women so much? He asked Dr. Patel. We don't hate, Dr. Patel replied. We want to protect you from sex. Not to see the face, not to, Prabhupada is saying. Then Patel is saying, because woman is an embodiment of Maya. So this is an exchange for all devotees, all brahmacharis, actually all devotees. Prabhupada says, you should be trained up that in spite of woman, you will not be agitated. Prabhupada said, that training is required. Then Patel said, now that training is very difficult to get, I am sorry to say. Prabhupada, no, that training is there. We are training in that way. Patel says, you must have a sort of between the objects and the indriyas, the senses. Prabhupada says, according to Swaminarayan's principles, I am fallen. No, sir, Dr. Patel objected. Because I am always surrounded by young girls, Prabhupada says. No, Swaminarayan was sitting with women, but the sadhus, that was Patel saying. Prabhupada says, men should be trained up in such a way that in spite of women, they will not be agitated. In European countries, if you restrict in that way, it will be fanaticism. Nowadays, here also, that is not possible. It is simply utopian, Prabhupada says. Patel, that's all right. It's not possible. So you are doing like this. We are training, Prabhupada stated. That is the training of Chanakya Pandit. Matruvat Paradarshu. There may be thousands of women, but you see them as your mother. That's it. If you become agitated by seeing even your mother, then what can be done? Prabhupada says, to avoid that trap, they avoid association with women. But these women, my disciples, are not ordinary women. They are preachers, they are Vaishnavas. By their association, one becomes a Vaishnava. There was also another instance when one newspaper reporter challenged Prabhupada. These people are worshipping you. They are fanning Prabhupada and everything. It was going on. And then Prabhupada simply told that reporter, the difference between you and me is that you can put me in a room with 100 naked women and I will not be agitated. Can you say the same for yourself? Prabhupada simply asked him. He kept quiet. After that, he didn't have any arguments. Laying foundations. April 1 was Ram Navami, the appearance day of Lord Ramachandra. On his morning walk, Prabhupada noted that many people were bathing in the sea, and he inquired, because today is Ram Navami, they are taking bath. He's questioning. Dr. Patel said yes, and toward the end of the walk, he raised the topic of fasting for Ram Navami, suggesting that one should fast throughout the night until the following morning. A devotee volunteered that we fasted until sunset. Prabhupada agreed but added, if one can continue until the next morning, that is all right. Later I asked Prabhupada when we should actually break the fast, and he replied that I should inquire when the local temples broke theirs and then follow their standard. It turned out that they broke their fast at noon, so that we did too. Prabhupada marked, so that clarifies. I also used to think why we are breaking fast at noon time. Usually for Vishnu Tattvas, we are supposed to fast until sunset, like for Lord Nrsimhadev. But Giriraj Maharaj has clarified that here. Prabhupada marked the occasion of Ram Navami by again laying the cornerstone for the Juhu temple. After so many delays and complications, he wanted to reaffirm his intention to build the temple. At the ceremony, he said, on this auspicious day of the appearance of Lord Ramachandra, we are taking this opportunity for the foundation stone, the cornerstone of our temple in this Bombay center. It's very kind of Mrs. A.B. Nair that she has given us this chance along with her husband. As far as we are concerned, we are preachers. We are preaching all over the world. We don't require any palatial building or comfortable apartment. But because it's a preaching center, in order to invite respectable persons, we require a nice building, a nice temple. Just like Rupa Goswami, our predecessor Acharya, left his ministership, his government post, and became a mendicant. He was living under a different tree every night. Tonight one tree, the next night another. But when he was approached by King Man Singh, the commander-in-chief of Emperor Akbar, in those days, big rich men were God-conscious and they wanted to do something for God's service. So King Man Singh approached Rupa Goswami, asking if he could do any service. Rupa Goswami was living under a tree, so what service could he expect from King Man Singh? He said, if you want to do some service, do it for Krishna. And he advised him to construct a temple at Vrindavan. Earlier in the day, after our regular morning program, Manaswi had announced that temples should come in the evening for... Manaswi had announced that people should come in the evening for Ram Dhun, bhajan for Lord Rama. Prabhupada responded to this in his talk that evening, saying that chanting Hare Krishna was sufficient. There's no difference between Rama and Krishna, he began. Krishna is Param Brahma and Rama is also Param Brahma. We Vaishnavas have equal faith and obeisance to all Vishnumurtis, Rama Adimurtishu, Rama Nrsinga Vara Narayana. But we Gaudiya Vaishnavas or Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnavas are worshippers of Lord Krishna's Murti. There is no difference between Lord Ramachandra's Murti and Krishna's Murti. But Krishna is full-fledged Param Brahma, whereas Lord Ramachandra, although also Param Brahma, did not exhibit his full-fledged opulence. These are very confidential things, but still on Lord Ramachandra's birthday, we offer our respectful obeisances at his lotus feet so that he may be merciful upon us to bestow his bhakti, devotional service. So although there is no difference between Sri Rama and Sri Krishna, one devotee is attracted by one feature of the Lord and another devotee is attracted by another feature. But factually there is no difference. But in the Shastras, it is said that if you chant the name of Vishnu, Vishnu Sahasranam, chanting 1000 times Lord Vishnu's name is equal to one name of Rama. And chanting 3 times the name of Lord Rama is equal to one name of Krishna. This is a verdict of Shastra. So when we chant Hare Krishna, Rama is already there 3 times. It's not that because we are chanting Hare Krishna, we are neglecting Rama. No, with each Krishna name, there are 3 times Rama's name. Besides that, we are also chanting Hare Rama. Hare Rama and Sita Rama are the same thing. There's no difference between Hare Krishna and Hare Rama. There is also Ramanam, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the Shastras, Agni Purana, Brahmanda Purana, Kalisandharana Upanishad, it is recommended. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. So devotees always chant Krishna's name and Rama's name together. And when there is question of Ramanam, there is Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. That is Ramanama. So there is no partiality that these people are simply after Krishna. Of course, we are a little more attached to Krishna, but that does not mean we do not know who is Lord Ramachandra. We know that he is Krishna himself in a different feature for pastimes. Rama Dimoti Shukala Niyamena Tishtan Nana Batara Makarod Bhuvaneshu Kindo Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramapumanyo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who by his various plenary portions appears in the world in different forms and incarnations, such as Lord Ram, but who personally appears in his supreme original form as Lord Krishna. Brahma Samhita 539. Now let us begin our regular class. And he proceeded to sing Jayarada Madhava and continue with his evening lectures on the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. I think this is a good place to stop. The Juhu story Grandha ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grandharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.